Major Garrett is with us from Palm Beach, Florida. And Major, I want to talk about, you had violence over the weekend. You had tens of millions of dollars poured into negative ads. And here we go. Donald Trump had another very big night, picking up more than 150 delegates. How did he do it?
By keeping his coalition together, which, if you look at the state of Florida, it was just as impressive and widespread and diverse as it was in another crucial Republican presidential primary state, New Hampshire. Donald Trump won in Florida with those with college educations and without, with men and women, and among those who identified themselves as conservatives and evangelical Christians. I mean, what Donald Trump has done in many key states, historically very significant for whoever becomes the Republican nominee, is build a broad-based coalition that is willing to stand with him and, in some cases, rally around him, even as either the scrutiny or the controversy or tumult around his campaign increases. And that's important not just from the perspective of Trump's campaign going forward, but it suggests that supporters in state after state after state see Trump as someone not only whom they want to support, but can withstand and weather all these various challenges and ultimately secure the nomination. And one thing in presidential politics is true, if nothing else is true: winning begets winning. Momentum builds momentum. And Trump has the momentum. He still has a divided Republican opposition. He still has the lead in delegates, and therefore must be assumed to be the presumptive Republican nominee.
Okay, so let me question this momentum a little bit. He does have the most delegates at this point, but compared to John McCain and Mitt Romney at the same point, he has far fewer delegates. He's a weaker front runner, if you will. Do you think that we can presume that this increases the chances of a contested convention?
It certainly makes that more possible than it's ever been in 2 or 3 generations, because contested conventions are not something that modern presidential politics has seen. Conventions have been exercises in elaborate political theatrics and nothing else. This year we could have an actual convention with fights over rules and delegate allocations and switching loyalties and allegiances. All of that is possible. And true, yes, what you said is absolutely correct. He has fewer delegates at this stage of the race than Mitt Romney and John McCain. But remember, Republicans have changed their rules. They distribute delegates proportionally much more than they used to. They used to have states with winner-take-all delegate allocations much earlier in the process. So even under the best set of circumstances, it would be hard for a leading Republican pursuing the nominee in this cycle to accumulate delegates as rapidly as Romney and McCain. The second point is that, yes, Ted Cruz has delegates. He remains somewhat close to Donald Trump, and John Kasich won in Ohio. But the math is much more difficult for them than it is for Donald Trump. And the simple fact in politics is, who would you rather be? And I guarantee you, Ted Cruz would rather have Donald Trump's delegates, and John Kasich would rather have Donald Trump's delegates than the other way around.
Absolutely. And if the theme of the morning is momentum, you look at Kasich had a very good night. Ted Cruz really didn't. Then you have Marco Rubio drop out of the race after losing in Florida. He was really running as that mainstream establishment candidate. So who now gets the support that was behind Rubio? Is it Cruz, who really didn't do that well, or is it Kasich?
Well, first of all, it's not as if there was this mad rush to Marco Rubio as the establishment alternative. There was a lot of flirtation and there was some amount of money, but in the end, Rubio did not assemble any kind of broad coalition anywhere. He won one state, Minnesota, and Puerto Rico, that primary. That's it. Marco Rubio's had lots of time to consolidate the anti-Trump movement, and it never worked. Ted Cruz is in a better position to do that because even though he came in second in Illinois and North Carolina, he did gather delegates in all 3 states, and he's the closest one to Donald Trump. And what he will argue to John Kasich starting this morning, if he hasn't begun to argue this already, is, Governor Kasich, you won in Ohio, but you've won nowhere else. And nowhere else on Super Tuesday 3 did you really perform all that well outside of your home state of Ohio. That's a home turf victory. It's important to you symbolically, but it is meaningless mathematically in your pursuit of the nomination. You can't get there. You should come over to my side. So what Cruz needs to do, and he needs to do it as rapidly as possible, is consolidate all the anti-Trump vote and make these races Donald Trump versus Ted Cruz. But until that happens, Trump still faces a divided Republican opposition and still has the math on his side.
Yeah, and John Kasich says he's not going anywhere.
Nope, he says he's in it for a while. Major Garrett, thanks so much.
You got it.